Hello and welcome to Municipal Matters here on York TV. I'm your host, York Bellsmith, and we are joined this time by Cobourg Mayor John Henderson. John, welcome. Thank you again for taking the time to join us. And again, just an update on how things are holding up with you and your family.
Very well. Thank you for asking. Everything seems to be moving forward. So good news, I think, not just for our family, but perhaps for others as well.
Yes, absolutely. And big news this week, too, with not only the plans for stage 2 being released, but also the date being Friday the 12th. Your thoughts on that and how that's going to affect businesses and such in the town of Cobourg? And is everybody ready?
Well, first of all, I do want to thank the Premier. He's got a tough job with his cabinet to make these kind of decisions. First of all, I know it's created some conflict. If you take, for example, the Halliburton Kawartha Pine Ridge District Health Unit, which we're part of, we have been given the green light to move ahead in phase 2. Yet, if you're in Durham region, which is just to the west of us, you're not given the green light. It's stage 1. So it is going to bring some concerns. But with that stated, I do want to emphasize, as much as the Premier has announced 10 wonderful pages of advancements on Tuesday to take effect on Friday, June the 12th, I would like our community to recognize that we cannot move that quickly based on a number of issues. First of all, these are comments through social media. We probably will not receive the actual regulations to our town clerk until sometime next week. And then our clerk will read through these to determine what is the information below the iceberg and what is it we have to understand to fully communicate to our community. And at this point, we don't have any of that information. So the onus is upon us as our emergency control group to work through all these many venues, and believe me, there are many. As I announced, we have at least 10 pages with 10 different initiatives. And the point is, as we deal with these, then we have to start to go back to the original question is, do we have the logistics? Do we have the plan? Do we have the staffing? Do we require any additional resources? And then, thank you for the province, but we still have to ensure within our own health unit, we receive their approval so we can move forward. So let's take something as simple as a child's splash pad. People would think, okay, Premier makes an announcement on Tuesday, takes effect Friday, well, you turn on the tap and we have a splash pad. Well, I wish it could be that easy. If it wasn't COVID-19, it would be that easy. But with COVID-19, we now have to determine ourselves what is the limit. Right now, the Premier has extended the limit from 5 to 10. Are we going to allow 10 children in at a time? How are we going to monitor that? If they're running around and touch the items within the structure, how are we going to have that cleaned? How are we going to monitor which children in there at which time? Are we going to rope off the section? How are we going to make washrooms accessible beyond portables? How's that going to be managed? What disinfectant do we use for water versus other material? How do we track who's using that area? So again, it seems simple that, okay, the announcement's been made, so let's open the door. But I wish it could be that easy. So I can only say we appreciate phase 2. We appreciate where the Premier is going. We're going to do everything we can in team performance, but you also have to realize we're probably working at 10 different initiatives simultaneously. And in terms of staffing, as one example, today we're just calling back for Friday the first 19 students from past experience in the town, but they'll receive their training just coming this Friday. And that's only 19 of our 50 plus students. So you can see, again, things are normal. I call it the new norm. And my answer is we're going to get there, but it's just going to take some time.
And as the announcement came as well this week that daycare centers will be able to open, child care centers, they're facing the same issues. They have a lot to put in place to get approval by the health units in their individual areas that is impossible to be done in just a few days since the announcement.
Well, and that's the issue. It's one thing to have the announcement, and I know everybody's getting excited by this because of the dynamics. But at the same time, we do have a responsibility as we move towards progress and opening up the economy in so many ways. We also have a responsibility to ensure the health and safety of what we're doing because the emergency is still with us, and we have to ensure to the best of our ability that that social distancing is being honored or at least certainly promoted.
So that brings up a big decision that council has made recently, and that was to fence off Victoria Park Beach. What effect is being in stage two going to have on that decision? Because that was closed off until the end of August.
Correct. And so we've asked for a report to come back. We realize with stage two, the Premier has announced beach access. We know he's opened up other beaches in provincial parks as well. We know that's a direction we'll have to move in, but the question to be asked again, how do we best do this? Demonstrate progress, align with provincial mandate of stage two, and at the same time still ensure we're being responsible in the health and safety. So it's going to require us to look at other models, to have those discussions, to change our ways moving forward. But more importantly, what does that look like? So I can only tell you, we're having those discussions right now. We've asked for a staff report for June 22nd. We'll continue to have those discussions, but again, I'm of the premise that I really want the blessing of our own health unit as we go through these different phases. If I have that, then I hope council would be willing to look at different models.
One of the issues is that because we are so close to areas around us, especially Durham and the GTA, that are still in stage one, and that's a very popular drawing ground for Victoria Park Beach all summer long. So it's bringing in
Well,
people that are still in stage one.
absolutely. And so the Premier has not designated or created any lineage between municipalities. So we know, in fact, this is happening. We know if they can't get out in Durham, likelihood within an hour's drive to Cobourg, I'm sure they're going to be arriving. They're welcome in our community, but more importantly, as we welcome them or anybody else, we have to ensure we have the right standards in place and what is our policy and what is our procedure. And I can tell you, we're working those out, and I hope the community can appreciate because we do have an onslaught of items. We have everything from a spray pad to the YMC Centennial Pool. We have Victoria Park. We have access to the beach. We have the campground. We have the marina. We have picnic tables. I mean, the list goes on, and each of these comes with all their plus and minuses that we're working through in a team performance. But again, I want to use the example of the marina. The Premier made marinas available, at least for boats, on May 1st. But it's not until this weekend of June 12th that we actually believe we're ready to receive the boats through Left End and work towards opening of the marina. That's a great news story for us, but my message is that's 6 weeks after the Premier's announcement for us to be ready. So again, we're doing our very best, but please remember we have a lot on our list. And then of course, the one that is most problematic we're dealing with right now is what do we do with patios?
Right.
The reason I say that because businesses are anxious. They want to open on the 12th. We clearly do not have the regulation before us, and we're trying to understand it so we can clearly communicate. And I can say to you that we had a meeting this morning. I'm more confused from today's meeting than I was before I went in because no one, including the health unit, understands what is the real rules going forward. It appears that Toronto has a set of rules. We may have a set of rules. Their health department has a set of rules. The question is, what are the rules? What are the in other words, we really have to be careful to deliver one unified message, because otherwise we will be creating inadvertently chaos with the ones we're most trying to help. So that's an example where announcements are made, but we as a municipality aren't giving much time to deal with them, again, in a very proactive manner.
That's a very important message to get across too. I mean, they have been saying from the beginning, when we start to go back to normal, it's not like flipping a switch. But even announcing each of the stages isn't flipping a switch either, because things have been shut down for so long, and we got to go about it the right way. Who has the final say on restaurants and when they've met criteria in order to open up a patio?
Well, I would say at this point, if it's standard because they've had them previously, I'm sure they'd be able, under our clerk, to follow those standard rules. However, if you're asking for any form of extension or going towards municipal or private, beyond private property, then all that rests with the municipality, and that rests with our clerk. And you can see the different bylaws that may come into play, because I don't believe any two facilities have the same dynamics. In other
Right.
words, the dynamics at the waterfront are different than perhaps that is faced at the Best Western, which is different than is faced on the main street of Cobourg. And then if we start to encompass, as what's been mentioned on the parking within the DBIA down core, well, now you're affecting municipal property. What do we do with accessibility issues? What do we do with parking issues? What do we do with protection issues? So it's not just as simple as, oh, I'd like to extend my patio. It really is a complex series of regulations. We're happy to be in compliance, but we just have to make sure, first of all, do we understand them? Can we communicate them? And ultimately, if it's on municipal property, this may have to come back to council for approval. So my answer is, we're working as quickly as we can, but I want to reiterate, because the Premier announced it Tuesday to Friday, my answer is maybe we can have this all in place for June 30th, if in fact it had to go to 2 rounds of council. So again, we have to operate differently than, let's say, the province, who just reads off 10 pages of information.
It is important for people to understand just exactly what the municipality, the town, has to go through. We have a lot more to talk about, including a Black Lives Matter rally that happened in Cobourg. We'll come to that after the break as Municipal Matters continues here on your TV. Welcome back to Municipal Matters here on your TV. I'm your host, York Bellsmith, joined this time by Cobourg Mayor John Henderson. John, once again, thank you for taking the time. We've talked a lot about the stage 2 of reopening and what that means for the town of Cobourg. Before this was announced, there was actually a huge Black Lives Matter rally in the town of Cobourg. Talk to us a little bit about that, and when the town knew about it, and your thoughts on how it all played out. There were a lot of people in town.
Yes, my estimate that we've heard back is anywhere from 400 to 700 participants. We did not, in my opinion, have a lot of time. We learned about it coming to Cobourg. I do want to credit Chief Vandergraaf and in particular Acting Inspector Scott Bambridge for a wonderful job of the Cobourg Police Service in honoring and walking with and being part of, and what I call creating a very respectful environment. I was pleased when I observed it to see a lot of youth demonstrating their democratic rights, doing so in a very proper protocol and manner, and indicating that they could still have a voice and certainly be very respectful of what we were hoping for within the town of Cobourg. The message is a strong message because it went worldwide, and I'm pleased that they took an opportunity to use their voice. I'm also want to be very clear. I'm very proud of our Cobourg Police Service, our officers, men and women, support staff. I've been following since I've been on the board and prior to. I'm very proud of our service. everything they're trying to do in their strategic plan involvement in community initiatives. We're one of the few mid-sized police service that's actually got into tier policing that enables us to all these different community initiatives, which I'm very proud that the chief and the Cobourg Police Services Board has sponsored. So again, I see our environment as being very different perhaps than the one that was certainly shown to the world in Minnesota. But with that being said, it also delivers the message that we have work before us to ensure that we continue to work at limiting any level of discrimination of any kind, and at the same time, not accepting any degree of violence, because violence to me is never a worthwhile outcome.
Definitely, absolutely, and the respect shown by the Cobourg Police Service, as you mentioned, was absolutely outstanding. And again, hats off to the chief and the entire service for sure. There were many people that took part in this that were wearing masks. There were a number that weren't, and with that many people downtown, social distancing was difficult. You could tell people were trying, but not a situation that's very conducive to that. Any concerns with the amount of people at one time?
Well, I will admit, without releasing names, I did get a number of calls from our good citizens asking, why do we abide by certain rules when it comes to rallies or protests? The rules seem to disappear. Right now, I haven't had an answer for them. I'm trying to find out, are there any rules or maximum number in protests or rallies? I've asked that of our representative, MPP David Piccini. I don't think there will be a limit personally, but again, it's balancing and trying to encourage that social distancing, because I know it's an ongoing issue. In other words, yes, you can protest, yes, you can have a rally, but at the same time, we would like you to express that individual concern for others, that you are respectful of social distancing. And I can honestly say with the numbers, I can't honestly say I witnessed that because of the numbers within going down King Street.
Right. Now, you talk about social distancing. Another topic we want to talk about here today is there was a bylaw enforcing social distancing passed, but then put on hold until a staff report is presented on June 22nd. Talk to us a little bit about that, the idea behind the bylaw and why it was put on hold.
Well, right now I can understand both arguments. I can understand the argument that if someone really abuses what they have as their own privilege, then I would like our own bylaw officers to have some mechanism that they can deal with that. Right now, we're not providing that as council. I also expect they will use their discretion and will use it in a very professional manner and hopefully as a last resort. However, on the other side of the spectrum, I appreciate what's been stated by other councillors, that we want to be careful that we're not taking away civil liberties, that we're not overreacting with low metrics, and are we, in essence, overreacting to a situation we don't have. So at this point, I'm appreciative of both points of view, and I will look forward to the report coming back on June 22nd to council. And without question, it's going to require more debate. And that's what I like about our council, because we're not just agreeing to agree. We're having a healthy debate, and this is a great example. And the question I'm asking always myself is, what is the balance? Because we're all trying to get that one right, and I know I'm always working at that question. So for me, I learned along the way. It's good, as someone said, I think Dalai Lama, as you said today, we can all talk to talk. But the real question is, are you listening? So my point is, I'm now listening to other points of view, because I am trying personally to find that balance before I make a decision.
And there's a lot to listen to, and they're very, very important decisions. Where people's health is a matter, and people need to understand. And I think you're explaining it very well, that just because the government announces something, there's a lot of work and a lot of thought on how it works for us here. And council has been doing a fantastic job of that. One other thing that's happening, well, there's many things happening in June. June is Pride Month with
Yes.
the COVID-19 pandemic. What does Pride Month look like in the town of Cobourg?
Well, I'm the first to say, unfortunately, it had to look like a new norm. Normally, we're able to invite others beyond 5 and make it a very important moment. I hope we did. I hope we treated it with the recognition it serves. And in terms of the town, we had a little ceremony regarding the Pride Crosswalk, celebration of, as you know, the rainbow colors, which to me represents diversity and, more important, represents the values that we're all trying to promote. And that's inclusion, safety and well-being, to be valued as a person, and I guess to be proud at the end of it. And I'm hoping through this will come the message I've always delivered, even in my days of being a elementary school principal, is to foster communication. And hopefully through that, we foster a better understanding, the person that may stand beside us. I feel that's what Pride does. It's an important lesson we have to continue. And I'm really pleased, again, this speaks to our Cobourg Police Service. Chief Vandegrand had his officers dressed out in the Pride colors as well. And we raised the flag at the police station. Again, only 5 individuals. But again, why I felt it was important is not just the colors and the flag or the rainbow colors and the crosswalk and the motive. It really is the message behind it. I mean, if we truly want to become an inclusive community, then we really have to work at understanding other people's differences and accepting them, or at least trying to better understand them as we move forward. So that's why in motion last night, it was approved by all members of council. We indicated that we would celebrate Pride for forevermore during this term, certainly, and it would just be a given on our calendar. And we hope next year's event, it might be to the point we can invite other members of the community to join us.
Certainly has been a lot of progress over the last few years in the town of Cobourg. Ontario's Feel Good Town, and has proven it with Pride Month, and with even so much with the Black Lives Matter rally that took place.
Yes.
One more thing about the COVID thing: free transit has been extended.
Correct. We're at the point, we have the other ongoing issues. I believe they're extended to August 31st. But with that being said, we're looking at transit month to month, and council agreed to extend it for another month. We know ridership, depending on the day and time, is down between 40 and 60%, but there's still those individuals who do rely on transit. And we want, during these challenging times, to offer that service. We know we have limited seating to 8 at a time. We know at times that's problematic, but again, we have to find a balance between providing transit and being respectful of social distancing. But the good news, council did agree, at least for this month, to continue with the same.
Good, excellent thought for the citizens that really rely on the transit for mobility. And some actual business is getting done as well, including electrical upgrades at the marina. Those are underway.
Yes, we're very pleased. The contract was awarded to one of our own, which is always nice to see when that can happen. Lakeland Multi-Trade received the contract. I can't remember the exact figure, ballpark, I don't know, 6 digits, low 6 digits, but more importantly, it's a contract to start to upgrade and set a standard for the marina, which has been a long time cry, certainly over my 9 years on council. And it will start to set the stage so that when we get to other phases, 2 and 3, it will serve as a foundation to make those connections. Ultimately, at the end of all 3 phases, it will add up to be probably closer to $1 million. But you have to understand that if you want a viable marina, which the town does, we're known as having a viable marina, one of the more high-end marinas, then you have to invest in your infrastructure. And I must admit, we haven't done that for some time. So this will be a critical period during this term. And I'm, for one, very pleased that we're doing that because it will put us in very good stead moving forward. And perhaps maybe one day be considered a prime marina once again along the southern part of Lake Ontario.
We're almost out of time. Quickly before we go, what message would you like to send to the citizens of the town of Cobourg as we get towards phase 2?
Well, I know we're all excited, which is great news. I know it's going to bring a new enthusiasm. I know we're looking for a change, and I'm all for that as well. I'm just asking, please, for a bit of patience as our staff continue to work on all these different logistics. In particular, Brent Larmer, who's just been incredible as our town clerk, and give us time to put this together. We're going in the right direction. We'll continue to have dialogue with yourself through council. We'll continue to monitor the situation and ultimately achieving this goal. We want to be progressive.
The big message there is to be patient. You're on it, and we really appreciate that for sure. And I appreciate your time for joining us again. We'll talk to you next time. You've been watching Municipal Matters here on Your TV. I'm your host, York Bellsmith, and we'll see you next time as well.